Good day, listeners. Welcome to Physio Room Podcast on Box to Box, where we discuss the various injuries disturbing athletes in the world of football. My name is Boluzi the Phenomenon, and right here in the studio with me, I have a medical doctor, of whom we'll be discussing a concurrent issue that affects footballers, known as concussion. Just before I introduce the medical doctor in the building to us, I would like to say a thing or two that I understand about concussion. From my own understanding, concussion is a type of head injury that occurs when the head is severely hit, and it can happen to anybody, even in the game of football or even in so many other situations. But now we are focusing on football as a game. Whether you are playing it professionally or you are playing it just for fun, concussion can happen to anyone playing football. Right now, I would love our medical doctor to kindly introduce himself to us.
Okay, hello listeners. I am Dr. Okuni Monso, popularly known as ML, and I'm here to discuss the medical condition that can occur in sports that is called concussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Okuni ML. We are glad to have you in the studio with us today, discussing this very important injury. I would like to ask, what exactly is concussion?
So, concussion is just a mild trauma to the brain. So, we all know what the brain is, but for the sake of those of us that don't know what the brain is the gel-like substance that is contained within the head and surrounded by the skull. So as we can see, this means that the brain is very important and delicate. So it is surrounded by this very tough protection, our skull, to prevent it from any form of injury. Now, a concussion is when a mild trauma occurs to this brain, and this can happen from maybe an impact to the head, or when there is a quick shake of the head back and forth, as in a whiplash injury, or when someone falls or the head is hit by an object.
Thank you very much, doctor. Wow. I even thought I knew so much about concussion, but listening to all these terms that you have mentioned right now, we've been able to come to understand the exact definition of concussion, and I'm sure that our listeners now have an in-depth knowledge of the definition of concussion. Now I would like to ask, how exactly does it occur and how serious can it be?
So a concussion, like I said before, occurs when there is a hit to the head. So any form of hit. So for example, if someone were to fall with the head on the floor, or someone were to be hit, for example, by a goalkeeper or by another player's head on the head, it can result in a concussion. Now, generally, concussion is defined as a mild trauma to the brain. So generally, it's mild, but because it can only be diagnosed by a medical professional, whenever that kind of injury occurs during the course of a game, no player can be able to say, oh, this person has concussion, this person doesn't have concussion. So you cannot categorically say that it is mild or it is severe. You have to wait for a medical practitioner and then do the basic things that you have to do to save the person's life.
Okay, well, that's interesting. But then, are there any symptoms that we will use to know if this player has actually suffered concussion, so that we don't tend to mistake concussion for something else, and maybe the person has maybe epilepsy or any other thing and the person slumps? So are there any symptoms that we use to know that, okay, actually this player or this person, it is concussion that just occurred?
Yes, so there are signs to help identify player that might have had a concussion. Now, generally, the brain function is going to be altered. So what does the brain do? So there will be signs like loss of consciousness, in the sense that the person can appear as if the person faints, or the person is no longer being responsive, or it can just be a slight alteration of consciousness. Also, the person might have a headache, the person might have blurry vision, the person might be confused, there's confusion, or the person might have problem with gait or balance. But all these signs that I've actually highlighted, they occur in different durations. So some people might have it for 30 seconds, or some might have it for up to 15 minutes, or even longer than that. So it depends on the severity on the head.
Okay, thank you so much, doctor. But then, are there any side effects whatsoever that comes with this concussion?
The side effects are basically the same as the symptoms. So if someone were to have a concussion now and person were to recover, because I said some might take just like 30 seconds. If the person were to recover and nothing is done, we just leave the person to continue playing the ball or continue doing whatever the person was doing before, the features of the concussion might last longer. So something they call post-concussion syndrome. So anybody that has suffered any of these symptoms during the course of a football game must be attended to by a medical practitioner, whether or not the person appears to recover very fast or not.
Okay. Not too long ago, I was watching a game of football and then a player suffered this hit on the head, and I realized that while they were trying to help the player and all, the tongue of the player was being held out. I was wondering that this one that they are holding the tongue of this player, what does this one mean? Is it that they are trying to make him keep breathing? Is it that if they leave the tongue, something will happen to the tongue? I was trying to understand, but now at least this is an opportunity for a doctor to enlighten us about it. So can you just help me solve this mystery, also telling us how exactly it can be treated?
Okay, so part of the functions of the brain is to help us to breathe. So if someone were to have suffered a particular head injury now, that means that function of the brain might be affected. Secondly, someone who has lost consciousness, someone that appears to have lost consciousness or fainted, will lose control of the tongue. So there's a tendency that the person is lying down, the tongue has the possibility of falling back down. So the tongue can fall back down and then occlude the passage of air, that's the airway. And if there's an occlusion of the airway, a person who has an occluded airway is likely to die within 4 minutes. Within 4 minutes, brain function is going to be affected. So that's why it's important that the tongue does not fall back. You attempt to open up the airway. However, that is not the only first aid that is available for any person that has suffered loss of consciousness from a concussion. There are other important first aid measures that can be implemented. Like you need to make sure that you rest the person. You don't move the person for any reason. The person remains lying flat and you hold the head in a firm position and make sure that it doesn't move around, waiting for a medical practitioner. And then if there's an obvious swelling on the head, you need to apply an ice pack to reduce that swelling. Then, as the question has been asked, you can now attempt to make sure that the airway is patent, waiting for a medical practitioner.
Okay, that is how it can be treated. Those are the first aid measures that can be taken to treat it. But then what now happens if it is not treated? Can it lead to death? Should we now be scared that this person has suffered concussion and there's no medical practitioner around, this person is dying? Or like, what do you have to say about that? What if it does not get treated? Or what if there is no medical practitioner anywhere around? Can a novice, or will I say a layman, try to perform maybe a CPR or something concerning this concussion?
I said before that a concussion is the mildest form of a trauma to the brain. However, even this concussion itself is still graded into the mild one, the moderate one, and the severe one. So part of the reactions that occur in the body when there is an injury to any part of the body is something they call an inflammation. And when there's an inflammation, there is something that usually follows it, which is swelling. Now, imagine that the brain is swelling inside the cage where it is surrounded. The brain continues to swell. Several things can happen that can result in death of that player. However, because concussions are usually mild, someone can have a concussion and then recover in the next 30 seconds and appear to be okay. Whoever recovers or appears to recover from concussion must not return back to that spot. At least for like 24 hours, the person must be satisfied by a medical professional to be very okay, because there is something they call second impact syndrome, whereby the brain that just suffered an injury from a concussion, the person were to return back to that same spot and continue the same spot again, that person were to suffer another impact, another concussion, then the possibility of death is very high.
So that means, unlike I use my leg to hit the ground or something, once someone has this concussion, you can't even attempt to go back to play any match again. If it was an ongoing game, you just have to stop there and you just have to end at that point. So I have one final question for you, doctor, just before we end this session. How long exactly does it take for this concussion to end, for the person to recover completely from this concussion? Is it 1 hour? Is it 24 hours? Is it 3 days? How long exactly does it take?
Following a concussion, the time it takes for someone to recover actually depends on the severity. Someone can have a concussion, lose consciousness, and remain that way for 30 seconds and get back to apparent normal functioning. However, someone can have a concussion which might last for several weeks. And even after the person appears to recover, the brain that was injured will still have to continue to repair itself. So that might take a period of months. So it really depends on the severity of the head injury, depends on the severity of the impact that will determine how long the person recovers.
Thank you very much for that, Doctor. And that is all we'll be discussing about the topic and the subject matter, concussion. I would love to thank all of our listeners for taking out time to listen to this podcast on the subject matter, concussion. And we also want to use this opportunity to thank ML, the medical doctor in the building, for joining us here, taking out time from his busy schedule to join us here and discuss this topic, concussion. Because if we don't tend to look at some of these important issues and people are not well enlightened about it, we would be risking death. For we that we love this sports and this game of football, a lot of us play it for fun, some play it professionally and the likes, but now that we are enlightened, we have been able to know and understand that me as a layman cannot just see someone that has just been a victim of concussion and rush to maybe do a CPR. So I should ensure that I will get a medical practitioner, because it is an injury to the brain and it needs to be treated delicately. I believe we have all learned a thing or two from this, and if you have really enjoyed this session, we would like you to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. You can also follow us on Instagram at box_2box, BOX_2, that's number 2 BOX, and also on Twitter at box_2_box_. I will take it again on Twitter at box_2_box_. And likewise, you can follow me on all social media platforms at Boluze, BHOLUZEE. Doctor, what is your handle for your social media platform? Let us hear from you so that our listeners can also follow you.
Okay, so thank you for once again inviting me to this podcast. I would like to do this once again. And on my social media handles, on Twitter and on Instagram, I am at Kid from Ikorodu. That's at KIDFROMIKORODU, at Kid from Ikorodu.
Thank you so much, listeners. Have a nice day.